Well, hello everybody, welcome back. This is Rob. Welcome to the channel. This is part 2 of the 2-part series on stereo width and stereo widening. In the last video, I introduced you to this track. In this video, it's finished. I have a bounced version of the before version of this track, which would be what was featured in the last video down here that I'm going to play in a couple minutes here. Last video, I went over 5 techniques for stereo widening, but there's actually more than that. So I've kind of lengthened the list, and I just want to review them real quick. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them. Okay, the first item number 1 would be Stereoizing Plugins, which would be kind of like the Waves S1, kind of like Waves. Again, they have the Abbey Roads mastering channel that has a widener on there. There are other plugins out there that have stereo widening that you may even have in your DAW. Even in Logic, they have imaging. They have a stereo spread, which actually uses the technique of EQing the left channel from the right, changing the spectral information from the left to the right. So there are a lot of stereoizing plugins out there. All right, then there are auto panners. Second item would be auto panning, and that I believe would also include tremolo. And then, of course, reverb and delay. And then double tracking, which is basically having an artist play the exact same part on the exact same guitar, for example, but in mono, but the performances are going to be different. And so they're not identical parts. So you pan one left and you pan one right, it's going to make it sound big and wide, and that's called stereo tracking. It's also done with vocals. You get a vocalist to sing the same part twice and as close to the same as he or she can, but they're not ever going to be the same sonically. And you just pan one left and one right. All right, and then let's see what else we have here. We've got modulation, chorus, flanger, phasers. Then there's hard panning, contrasting sounds, which is I've done a couple of times in this track, on the vocals and on the pads, which I will go over. And then there's EQing. Then there's EQing the left differently from the right, which you would have to probably do with a special EQ that you could EQ only. You've seen them that have where you can have either link them or delink them, and you can have separate controls on each side. You can boost the higher highs, and then on the right side, you cut that what you boosted, and then vice versa. So I'm not going to go into that. I've used that, and I don't find that to be as quick or dramatic. I find that you can use that later on just to kind of add just a little bit more subtle wideness. If you wanted to do something, accentuate the wideness using that. Then there's micro shifting, which is having 2 identical, or actually 3. You can take 3 absolutely identical parts, put one down the middle, one down the left, one down to the hard left, one to the hard right, and then detune the right one down just a few cents, just slightly detune it down, and then the one on the left, detune it up, and then that'll make a big wide sound. All right, that's micro shifting. And then there is layering, which, in other words, if you have a stereo, say, for example, snare or a clap, you can find another sample that's similar sonically that's stereo, and you can layer it slightly and just kind of bring it up, which I've done that with the clap. Or you can have one layer that you apply a stereo effect to, and I've also done that with the bass. So, okay, so what I want to do is I just want to play this right here, and we will get going. This is the before, and I'm just going to skip ahead so you can get an idea of what it sounded like before, and then I'll get right into playing the finished product, and then I'll A-B that with the original as I go along. Okay, here we go. Okay, and that was pretty much it, where we left off last time. Okay, so now I'm going to remute that and start playing the finished product. And I'm going to skip ahead. If you want to hear the entire project finished, I will play it at the very end of the video if you want to stick around for that. Okay, so here we go. Press play here. Okay, so that's what we're looking at, and I hope you like it. I think it came out okay. It's not the most cutting-edge track, but I also kind of produced it over the course of this past week, plus I worked full-time all week. Just kind of did it after work. Oh, by the way, I did do a couple of live streams of me working on this track. If you want to check that out. It was earlier this week. Okay, so let's just dig right in, and I'm going to start. The kick is just the kick. It's mono, all right? And I don't really need to do a clinic on kicks right now. So let's play the drums excluding the ride. I did add a ride, all right? But let's just play the drums here where they're all in. And then... Whoops. That's not going to work when you do it that way. Okay, unfortunately, I can't A-B it as easily. Unless I do it like... Yeah, I can't A-B it that easily. Okay, so anyways, let's start off here. The clap is a 2-layer clap. You've got the main clap, which sounds like this. And then a top clap added makes the clap sound like this. Now the top clap, the bottom clap is mono. I've got a little bit of EQ done here. Add a little bit of sparkle on the top. Try to bring it out a little bit. But the main work of stereo widening is done by the top clap, which is sent to a sample delay, which I call short reverb, short delay. And what that does is it's delaying the right signal against the left, which makes it sound wide. If I turn it off, it's going to sound right down the middle. But if it's on, it makes it sound stereo. And that's layered on top. So that's an example of layering. And it's also an example of using a stereo making plugin. Okay. And then there's a reverse clap in here too that I believe, yeah, I sent a little bit of that to the sample delay to make it sound stereo. Then I've got these two hat loops here. And let's come over here to these hat loops. Let's lift this up a little bit. And so these. Now I've got kind of like a Pultec EQ on here, and I've got, I've cut away some of the mud, obviously, which is what you do. And actually I gave a little boost because there's a little tom in there that I kind of like the sound of. All right, but I have this sent to a Abbey Road chamber, and that I call the short reverb. All right, and so what that does is I turn it off. You'll notice it's gone now. So it gives it it kind of puts it in a room, basically, because it has space, a place to breathe, so the track can breathe a little bit. This is an example of all the little details you do to a track that makes a difference in the long run. All right, and then I've got the shakers. Let's move on to those. The shakers, I'm going to turn the reverbs off on those. The same reverb, by the way. Let's see here, let's move to the shakers. Same reverb, which is the Abbey Road chamber. Now what I did with these is I panned one hard left, panned one hard right. I delayed the left 7 ticks. So what that does, that changes the sound just like that sample delay, that short delay I just showed you. This is an example of the Haas effect, but you're just basically doing it a different way. See how it's wide? If I were to take this to 0, it's going to sound right down the middle because these are 2 mono parts. Now I'll put it back to 7, delay it to 7 ticks. Now we're wide again. Now I also added on these, whoops, I forgot to turn the reverb off on that one. This is completely dry. Now I'll add the reverbs on them. Just adds a little space, makes it sound more organic. All right, then we have this top loop here that came with stereo information in it already, and it's really wide, and it actually has a little reverb, sounds like to me. Sounds like it's in a little bit of a room. I like that. It's a nice sounding loop. And then I put a little ride in here also. And I have that sent to the Abbey Road chamber again. And I also have it boosted a little bit with the Mag EQ. I took it up with 40K. And what that does, it creates a big, shallow, broad shelf to add sparkle to a sound without just totally ripping it, you know what I mean? Making it unlistenable, crispy. And then, so it's way in the back. I put a sample delay on there too to make it sound wide. And then it's just a part where the listener is not really going to be able to pick it out or notice it, but will notice it when it's gone. It helps keep time in the breakdown. Okay, so that's the drums. And so let's move on to the bass here. Here's the bass. You have 2 layers. I'm going to play the top layer here. Now on the top layer, I have an S1 imager, but when you're using stereo plugins that affect the stereo field, you're not always making them wide. It's also beneficial to make them more narrow than they are. All right, if I were to take this to 100% of its width, it would sound like this. But I want it to be a little bit narrower, so I took it down to 66%. Right there. So it's very subtly different, and when combined with the monoed out sub bass, and I explain how I formulated this bass in episode 1 of this series. We play that now. Whoops. It's right down the middle. I had to do a lot of work to that. I had to put 2 compressors on it to tame that, because I have a LFO tool on there to tame that sound. So that's what we're looking at. Okay, and then I have another bass here. Let's get rid of this. It's called the Big Oscillator. It's a patch. I don't believe it even exists in the ES2 anymore, but it did at one time. What it is, it's 3 saws, 2 of them detuned, and that's an example of the micro shifting that I was talking about. You have one that's right down the middle. It's going to be mono. If I turn these 2 off, well, actually, it's got unison turned on too. Okay. So they're just detuning for an effect. Alrighty. Forgot that. All right. Sorry. Now in the breakdown, I don't mind having a low sub-bassy type sound wide, because I'm not worrying about fighting the kick or other parts so much. You know, it's not a real big wall of sound yet. Right? Just kind of adds a floor to it. All right? Okay, and then moving on is the pluck. All right, that's the way it sounds. Now on this pluck, I've got a graphic EQ, which is a stock Logic vintage graphic EQ. And I've got a little bit of reductive EQ on here. Try to get rid of some of the problem frequencies. Then I did not use this DGM filter. It's still on there. I was going to use it. I may still. And then what gives it its slap is this Echo Boy. I've got it set to straight 1/8, not dotted or anything. Ping pong. Studio tape setting. Here it is before. Then I'm going to add it. Now if I turn off all the spatial on this, it sounds pretty dry, just like the original that I played earlier. Now add the reverb. Now this reverb is a Valhalla Vintage Verb chamber 3.4 second delay. There's the setting right there. It's a clear chamber. And then I just adjusted the decay time to my liking. All right, so that pluck is really, it's really tamed. I got a compressor on here. It's doing quite a bit of, it's a pretty dynamic part because obviously it opens up. All right, then I've got this other pluck, which is kind of like a response to the main pluck. This is the little, let me turn off all of the effects on this one. All right, and it's got a reverb on here too, so. Well, I guess Silent has a little reverb on there too. Yep, there's some reverb on that patch. Oh well, I try to pay attention to all that. I missed that one. Wow, okay. So it's just a MIDI part, and then I send it to the step effects, which is gonna, it's got a delay, it's got a little reverb, it's got some modulation using LFO. It's just a patch. It's called Endless Roll. All right, so you got the idea there. Then I got a little console EQ, which is the Neve emulation. Got a boost here at about 5K and a little bit on the high band too. And then let's turn that on. Let's get rid of this. Then I got a channel EQ doing a little bit of reductive. Then I've got a replica, which is a Native Instruments delay. Kind of smears things around even more. And I got a gain on there for, I guess, a little automation. And then I've got a compressor on here because it's a really unruly, very dynamic part. Catch some of those peaks. Then I'll turn the reverb on. And played together. Okay. And then so that brings us to the pianos. Now the pianos, I have two layers. I have a Contact 5 with the Grandeur piano selected. Then I have a Nexus piano. I don't remember which one it is. It's the Century out of the ROM extension 2. All right. Now, that's actually an octave lower, so I had to bump the MIDI on that one up 12 semitones. So let me just play this part, this one here. I also have a lot of compression on the Grandeur part here. So you get an idea of what it's doing there. And it's sent to this Echo Boy Jr., long delay 2, specifically for the piano. It's a quarter note dotted quarter, ping pong, set to space for some reason. I can't remember why I did that. All right, but maybe just because I like the way it sounded. That's the one, remember, that has the, if you watched last episode, it has the kind of, let me turn all this off here. And off this one, on this one too. See there, it has kind of a little bit of a stringy sound to it there. Just layering. I could have layered it, put a different layer if I wanted to. All right, so that's mixed in pretty decently there. And that brings us to the pads. Now the pads are, let's see here. Now I have it sent to, again, to a group channel, and I have long delay 1, which is an Echo Boy. Quarter note on the left, quarter note dot on the right, set to ping pong, space echo. And let's turn that, all the effects off. And what we have here is they're panned quite a bit left and quite a bit right, but they are two different. This is an example of hard panning or semi-hard panning two contrasting sounds, even though they sound really similar. Okay, so here's, on the left we have the massive. On the right we have a albino, or albino, however you want to pronounce it. So we have two synths that are, no matter what you do, they're going to sound totally different. So when you pan one hard left and hard right, they're going to sound different to your ears, your brain, and it's going to sound really wide. Then you add in, like I got a lot of filtering, filter a lot of the highs out of the pad because I don't want the pads fighting with anything else. It's just a pad. It's something for the whole song to sit on. Right? I guess that's what that term pad means, right? And then add in the spatial effects. Sent to the long reverb again. The long reverb is a 7-second reverb, Valhalla Room, Abbey Church of Fossa Nova. Okay? So I think that sounds all right. Whoops. Okay, for some reason my kick went away there. I don't know why. All right, okay. All right, so now we got strings here also, which heavily sent to the long reverb. Got a little bit reductive EQ, getting rid of some of the problem frequencies. And it just is what it is. It's a string section. Oops, you can't hear it because it's just one long note here. Okay. All right, so that's really, and when you hear it in context over here, it's you can barely pick it out, but then I'm going to turn it off and you'll see how it's missed here. So it just adds a little top end, a little bit of interest, a little bit of smoke machine, so to speak. All right, let's move on to the vocals here. Now that's sent to a group channel, and I've got the Jack Joseph Puig set to female, and I didn't really play with anything other than just the master, just adjusted the master. I like this plugin a lot. I don't really have to do much to it, just throw it on there and it brings the vocals out. Then I kind of got a little bit of reductive EQ. Oh, and I also have the Juno chorus. It's going to make it add a little bit more width to everything here. There's already a little stereo information in the sample itself, and then of course it's got the long reverb and then the long delay. The signal is sent to both of those, but adding this June 6th, this Arturia chorus, adds just a little bit more width, subtly, especially to the, like this one here, this playing the E note here. All right, see how it's definitely wide now because of that chorus. Okay, now this is an example of me panning to contrasting sounds, which would be the D and the C note. One right and one left. That's just pretty simple and straightforward. So this is the vocal chops are just kind of like ear candy to this track. Pretty much. They do provide a musical foundation too in certain parts, but they add a lot of ear candy too. Okay, and then that brings us to basically just the effects. And most of the effects I have sent to that long rise already had spatial information in it. And then white fall, let's see here. Okay, yeah, so these already had spatial information. If you can just listen to this here. That cymbal swell sent to the long reverb. I just picked the white noise samples that already had reverb built into them, that already had effects applied to them. Just dropped them in. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So if you have any questions, you feel free to comment. I will answer any questions you may have on what I've done here. And so thank you very much for watching. I'm going to play this out for you, for those of you who stuck around. And if you like this video, hit that thumbs up. It helps other people, new people, find my channel, and it's greatly appreciated when you do that. And if you want to be notified for the next video, hit subscribe. That's greatly appreciated also. And I might do probably will tomorrow, look for a announcement of a another live stream tomorrow, Saturday. And I'm going to be working on a few things. Haven't decided yet, but I will put that in the description. So anyways, I'm just going to press play here and have a good one.